It's loud. Okay. Anyway, we're going to kick things off, as we always do.
With the top 10.
Yes, but we're going to kick off the top 10, like we always do, with the Baylor Watch.
The Baylor Watch.
The Baylor Watch.
Have
Jake,
they won
did
yet?
they win last week?
No, they did not.
No, they did not. They are 0-8 on the season. They lost to Texas 38-7.
And Texas is not a good team.
Texas is not a great team. They were ranked to start the season, though, even though they finished last season 5-7.
How are they this year?
Not great. I think like 4-4.
Neat.
Not 100% on that, but I think they're.
I think they are.
Yeah. So Baylor.
You know what the exciting thing about Baylor is this week?
What's the exciting thing about Baylor this week?
They're my worst game of the week.
Ooh, that's exciting. We're gonna get
worst game of the week.
Okay. Well, I wish we would have edited this. Anyway,
Sorry for my improv.
we are excited to see Baylor on the worst game of the week.
I'm
for the
very
first time.
excited. I think they're going to get their very first win under the spotlight of the worst game of the week. It's the Baylor Bears.
But don't worry. Even if they win this week, we're not taking them off the Baylor Watch. We're going to continue to watch them for the rest of the season.
I think this is the only one of the season.
This is quite a show. After Kansas this week, which is the worst game of the week, they have Texas Tech, Iowa State, and TCU. Doesn't look like they're going to get wins in any of those games. So
no, it's going to be a rough go for them.
yeah, Kansas is really their only shot. Jake, do you want to jump into your worst game of the week now, or do you want to save it until after the top 10?
I can just save it. That's fine.
Okay, we'll save it. That's it for Baylor, then, until the worst game of the week. Number 9 on our top 10. The NCAA has 5 undefeated teams left. Those are Alabama, Georgia, Wisconsin, Miami of Florida, and UCF.
Thank you for specifying which Miami.
Yes,
thought for a second
Miami
it
of
was
Ohio is not great.
I thought they might have been undefeated. I couldn't.
They're
tell.
not. I can tell you that right now.
They don't get enough TV press time, so you never know. They could be undefeated.
Right. They did beat the University of Buffalo, though. And the MAC is in this part of the season now where they play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday games, which is absolutely insane.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Well,
It means we get football 6 days a week.
It's something to watch now that the World Series is over.
So when Danny asked the question a couple weeks ago, who's the next undefeated team to drop out? I think we were all wrong. A couple people said Miami of Florida. I said UCF.
I actually said TCU.
I think technically the first team to lose was USF. I could be wrong. It might have been TCU. I don't remember who played earlier last weekend.
It was USF.
I think by a few minutes, because I think TCU is also the 3:30 game.
They both played 3:30
Yeah.
games? Okay. So, either way, they both lost 3:30. Penn State lost at night. As most of you probably know, Penn State lost to Ohio State 39-38 on a touchdown with 1 minute and 48 seconds remaining.
I was disappointed.
Were you?
A little bit.
Is it because on our first episode...
Mom!
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was very quiet. I was very quiet.
Sorry for the interruption, folks. Now, if you'll remember in the first episode, we had a debate gate. Who would win, Ohio State or Penn State, when they played this season?
I should have been right.
You were not right, though.
When you're leading a team at different points of the game, when you're up 18 and then up 11 points, you really shouldn't blow the lead. If you blew lead once and then you gain a lead like that again, you shouldn't blow it a second time.
But let me tell you, JT Barrett was on fire in that fourth quarter. They could not stop him. I think he ended at 13 for 13 for 170 yards in that fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Penn State, they held Barkley in check. And that was the big thing. Penn State couldn't control the clock late in the game, and Ohio State made them pay for it.
For all of you listeners, it's worthwhile to note that now Danny gets a careless whisper that overcomes him every time you talk about JT Barrett, in addition to Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Drake.
I did not include JT Barrett on my Heisman watch for this week, but I will say 25 touchdowns to 1 interception is pretty impressive.
Careless whisper.
Yeah. Ohio State beat Penn State. Jake is now bending the knee. You cannot see it, but he is bending the knee as we speak.
I'm not bending the knee.
Due to that debacle from the beginning of the year. He swore up and down Penn State was going to win that game. They did not win that game. And I think it was also his upset of the week. So it hurts him twice.
Well, you took out my record for worst game of the week, so I guess you put it back in. Why would you take it out then put it back in?
I didn't take it out.
You did.
No, I didn't. Anyway.
Damn.
The other undefeated teams, USF lost to Houston on a touchdown with 11 seconds remaining. I believe on that drive, I did not watch this game, but I heard in the last drive of that game, 4th and
24.
4th and 24 they gave up.
Yep. It was a rollout to the right, threw up a prayer, had 5 USF defenders and 2 Houston wide receivers, and the tallest one comes down with it.
That's a terrible way to lose.
Plus, it was like a 27-yard pass. It was
Yeah.
barely over the first down marker.
Yeah, and then they scored on a 20-yard touchdown with 11 seconds left. You can't cover the last 20.
On a quarterback run.
Yeah, there you go. That's beautiful.
The quarterback scramble
So
on third down.
Tough way for USF to lose their game and fall out of the rankings completely with their one loss. Anyway, TCU also fell 14-7 in a burner to Iowa State. 14-7. I think the last touchdown was scored maybe in the third quarter. There may have not been any points scored in the second half. I'm not 100% on that. I don't remember when Iowa State scored their second touchdown, but that yikes.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead. This was one of the top 10 was Iowa State Cyclones because it was impressive what they were able to do to stop TCU. All right, so it was midway through the fourth quarter, and the score is 14-7. And it's second and goal. TCU has the ball on the 3-yard line. And Kenny Hill on the snap gets sacked by Iowa State's linebacker Willie Harvey, and he knocks the ball loose, and Iowa State recovers the fumble, preventing TCU from scoring and tying up the game. And then ultimately won them the game.
Yeah,
pretty impressive. You stop the number 4 team second and goal from the 3-yard line and hold on to the win.
Well, the way TCU's offense was playing, I mean, for anybody to keep them to 7 points was pretty impressive. Iowa State not really known for their defense either, so they're showing that they can do it on both sides of the ball. When they beat Oklahoma, they scored, 38, I think, that game?
30, 39, 38 points, yeah.
Yeah, so they're showing it on both sides of the ball right now.
Yeah.
They're looking good.
So now the Horned Frogs are left saying, Kenny Hill, go back to TAMU, please.
No. I think they're all right with Kenny Hill.
Yeah.
I don't like Kenny Trill Hill personally, but
I was hoping you wouldn't use his nickname. It was the worst.
but you can't help but be impressed by Iowa State and their backup quarterback Kyle Kempf.
Kyle Hempf?
Kempf, I think.
Kempt.
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 I thought there was an F somewhere in there. My apologies.
Kempt.
All right, there you go. That's how you spell it.
Danny and his name pronunciation.
Yeah, there you go. My bad.
This is Iowa State's backup quarterback?
Yes. Backup
Wow.
quarterback.
He's not going to be the backup anymore.
No, he's not. He's been real impressive. Anyway, the 5 remaining teams that I listed off earlier, they all play this week. Alabama gets LSU at home. Georgia gets South Carolina at home. Both of those teams are favored by over 20 points.
Oh.
Wisconsin goes on the road to Indiana. They're favored by 13. Miami of Florida plays at home to number 13 Virginia Tech.
Ruh-roh.
And Virginia Tech, I believe, is favored by 3 in that game, which is very interesting. Got an undefeated Miami. Underdogs at home to a division rival who's got a loss already on their schedule. And then last but not least, UCF goes on the road to play SMU in an important AAC game.
Are any AAC games really that important?
Yes, they are. When SMU only has 1 conference loss and UCF has 0, losing this game would hurt them pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gives USF a shot again at the title.
Well, USF still controls their own destiny in the AAC. If they beat UCF, then they'll win the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
But if they lose again, then they're in trouble.
You think so?
You got the next one.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Dartmouth.
The Ivy League.
Yes. So, is it Dartmouth or Dartmouth? I like Dartmouth, but I feel like that's not how
I think
you
it's
say
Dartmouth.
It's Dartmouth.
it. Dartmouth. Defensive quality. This is what's ironic. It's a defensive quality coach.
Quality control.
Quality control.
What is a quality control coach for those people who don't know, including myself?
A quality control coach is one that evaluates, in this
the
case,
quality
he's
of play?
well, in this case, it's a defensive coach,
Yeah.
right? So he evaluates practices, game plans, plays, and
So is he evaluating the staff or is he evaluating the players?
everybody.
Okay.
He evaluates everything.
Based on what he did during this game, it was definitely the players he was evaluating.
right.
And
so
they're getting audited pretty hardcore.
yeah, he basically evaluates how the practices are translating to the games and,
Okay.
and trying to provide points of emphasis that needs to be improved. That's what
Yeah.
defensive quality control
There's a
is.
little fun fact for all you listeners out there.
Thank you for that insight for the fact of the day, Joe.
You're
So,
welcome.
anyways, Coach Deion King decides to rage quit after a punt was fumbled against Harvard on Saturday. He went and punched a hole through the glass window in a Harvard press box
Nice.
during that fumble. And it's kind of impressive. Glass started shattering over some fans. It was one of the biggest things that ever happened in Ivy League football since
So you're going to start saying since and then not have anything to follow it up and then just improv it on.
No, I had something. I'm
Ah,
trying to think
good.
of Yale. Since Yale's last national championship.
Yeah.
Yale, fun fact, leading the country in national championships. Bet y'all didn't know that.
They're not D1 anymore.
But they have the most national championships.
Is it
Is it
D1
one like-
national championships?
Back then, it was all D1.
Okay.
I don't think they've won one since like the 40s or something. Don't quote me on the exact year, but it was early 1900s last time they won one. But I think they have 11 or 12 national championships.
Yeah, they won like 11 in a row from like 1894 to.
And it was back when the
1911.
seasons were like 8 games long and there was like 7 teams to play. Kind of like the 7-on-7 league that we just joined. So, my question for you is, was it justified? Dartmouth was up 14-0, and then after that, Harvard rallied for a 25-22 win. Wouldn't you punch a hole in some glass?
No. No, I
Joe?
would not. You're up 14-0. Your team fumbled a punt. Great. You give up a touchdown, you're up 14-7. Get over it and play the game.
When he doesn't play the game.
Well, for this guy, get over it and sit in your press box. You don't. First off, it's an away game. You're destroying property at an away game. That's never going to go over well. 2, there's never a reason to punch a hole in a glass window. Ever.
Are you sure?
Ever.
What if there's a fire?
Okay. So there's a fire at the football stadium with a whole bunch of other coaches inside. Apparently there's no door, so he's got to go through the window. Throw your body through the window. Don't punch a hole in it. That's not going to help get your body through.
Well, you don't want to get glass all over your body, just maybe in your hand, then you jump out when there's a hole through there.
Okay. We're not going to argue glass.
The
and
logistics of fire escape.
fire. No, either way, this isn't justified. There's no reason for it. This guy should be suspended probably for the rest of the year. There's no reason for it.
You heard it here first. Go on.
Anyway, on to the next item on our docket. Florida State. They fall to 2-5 after getting romped by Boston College, 35-3.
What happened if they had a Deion King on their team, quality control coaching their
No, apparently it
defense.
would have gotten even worse because after that fumble and glass incident, as you're talking about, they were outscored 25-11.
You can't help he's passionate.
Well, you should learn to
But
control
yes,
that.
FSU got destroyed.
Yep, Jimbo's going to go into 2018 on the hot seat, no matter how they finish this season.
You know, I don't even like Florida State, but up to this point, I've been defending Jimbo, saying how is he going to be on the hot seat when he's produced a fairly good team ever since he's been there, and he's had one bad season. But when you lose to teams like Boston College 35-3, and you only have 2 wins, I guess I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, they only play 11 games this year because one of their games got canceled.
I would be
Interacting.
shocked if he gets fired this season, though.
He won't. There's no reason for him to get fired because his buyout's $40 million.
Oh.
So that plays a big part in it. Second off, like you said, he has had consistent results up until this season, and he's without his starting quarterback that he expected to have all season. I think it's not great that losing one player causes the team to fall like this. I know they've lost more than just Francois, but he's a big reason for them that their offense is so anemic this year. I think with Francois, they put up many more points than what they have been more competitive in some of these games.
So let me ask you, do you think they make a bowl this year?
No. Like I said, the only chance they have is if they go 5-6 and their academics is strong enough to get them in as a 5-win team. They only play 11 games. They can only lose one more game to have a 5-6 season. They have Clemson left on the schedule. They still have Florida, who knows what's going to happen in that game. But even this week, they play Syracuse. They're only 4-point favorites against Syracuse. Who knows if they're going to beat them?
Seminoles, you better be scared. Malik Zaire is in the starting spot now.
Yeah, we'll see if he's there at the end of November.
Shit's going to go down at Mizzou this week.
Yeah, we'll see.
But in regards to Florida State, I think they're going to struggle. I don't think they're going to make it to a bowl game this year.
No, something needs to happen in terms of the program. Somebody needs to be let go, be it a defensive coach,
Maybe that junior quararguardian that's being started over a freshman who doesn't know what he's doing.
an offensive line coach. I don't know. No, Cosentino's there kind of as a
Moral support.
he's a
He's
reserve.
not even doing that good.
He's a reserve player that's just there to kind of
Fill the roster.
help out. He's an emergency quarterback basically.
He gives the Gatorade to the players during timeouts.
So whatever. It's on the players for the way they're playing, but one of the coaches has got to get let go. They have to make some sort of changes because this season has gone way worse than anybody could have predicted, even with losing Francois.
So keep an eye out to see which coach is sacrificed to the football gods for Florida State at the end of the season.
Let's. Speaking of coaches and getting fired, let's move on to your
Butchie
boys.
Jones.
Okay.
He's just putting off the inevitable.
No, go for it. Go talk about Butch Jones. We'll get back to McElwain.
How has Butch Jones not gotten fired yet? All right.
I
This is what
think
wanna
his
know.
buyout is $9.2 million. That could play a large part in that.
I'm sure they're probably losing $9.1 million this season and like fans and merchandise and all that stuff because they've lost 4 straight. All right.
Uh-huh.
They're winless in the SEC.
Uh-huh.
And to lose again by a close game, they kept getting and losing the lead against Kentucky last week. They lost to Kentucky. Kentucky
Kentucky's
ends
having
up
a decent year.
It's Kentucky. They end the game by driving 61 yards to take a late lead, and then end up beating the game. Tennessee couldn't turn it around.
It's Tennessee. Why are you expecting more?
It's true.
If you're
I'm
gonna use
just
if you're
saying.
gonna use the it's Kentucky line, well, it's Tennessee. What do you expect?
I'd say Tennessee is better than Kentucky.
Yeah.
Historically, I'm talking historically. You know, obviously not this year. Kentucky is having a decent season. Anyway, I'm just surprised that this guy's people were thinking he was going to get fired last season, and he's having like an even worse year this year, and he's still there.
He entered the season on the hot seat, and like you said, he's not having a great year. But I don't see the benefit in firing him now. You've let it go this long. I don't see the benefit in keep letting him go now. You're gonna have to pay a buyout, which never fun for the school, and even if you get a new coach, you're going to put an interim coach in there because you're not going to hire a new coach right now. You're not going to bring somebody in from outside the program to finish the season with these kids.
Les Miles is waiting for a job.
Doubt it. I think he's just fine.
Probably.
But you're not going to bring anybody else in. You're going to just hire somebody from the interim like Florida did just to finish out the season.
We haven't gotten to that yet.
Well, yeah, but it's still relevant. Firing Butch Jones now doesn't do anything for Tennessee. Let him finish the season. Let him go at the end of the season. I don't know if his contract expires this year or what the deal with that is, but at some point you have to let him go because you're not getting the results you want.
If you love him, let him go.
Well, they do not love him down there in Knoxville, I can tell you that.
Well, let's talk about some people that you do love. Let's go over to our segment of Danny's Dudes.
Okay, why do you change the name of that every week? Anyway,
Danny's Dudes.
I've got a couple of stat-related lines on the top 10 here. We'll go with the stats, the weekly leaders, not quite leaders, but the weekly stars, I guess you could say.
Danny's Dudes.
Super stats.
I call them the super stats, but Jake doesn't like that title, so I'm trying
Danny's
to figure
Dudes,
it out.
Joe. Come on, stick with it.
All right, anyway, quarterback of the week, John Walford, Wake Forest. 28-34 for 461 yards and 5 touchdowns in a 42-32 win over Louisville.
They
It seems
really
like
chalk off.
it seems like we have somebody every week that played against Louisville. Last time we did this, I think we had the running back from Boston College when
Yep.
Boston College beat Louisville. Now we got the quarterback throwing for 460 yards. All right, running back. Devin Singletary for Florida Atlantic. The Fighting Lane Kiffins. They're doing well in the
Tell you
CUSA,
what.
man.
They're turning it around.
Florida Atlantic and Florida International. The Florida squads, except for Florida State and Florida this year, really turning it up.
Yep.
Really,
JU's having a good year, too.
yeah, they're doing all right. But
Yeah.
all right. 36 carries for Mr. Singletary, 244 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a 42-28 win over Western Kentucky. Big win for them. They get Marshall this week. Also a big game in the CUSA. Last but not least, this will also play into our worst game of the week. Wide receiver Steven Sims Jr. out of Kansas. 9 receptions, 233 yards, and 1 touchdown in a 20-30 loss to Kansas State.
Ouch.
Yeah, I mean, he played well, and, Baylor does not have a good defense, definitely not as good as Kansas State, so we'll see what he can put up this week. If you listeners have any incredible stat lines from the weekend, please send them in to @BYSC Podcast or @DubDish for a chance to be featured in our next podcast.
Or use the hashtag Danny's Dudes.
Don't use that hashtag. Please tag one of those things that I labeled in there so that I can see it and actually get it into the podcast.
Hashtag Danny's Dudes @BYSC Podcast.
That will work, but please don't use that hashtag. All right. Anyway, that's my first stats grouping. I'll get into the Heisman watch in a little bit. You talk about Jim McElwain.
That's the only one I have left. So Florida and Jim McElwain part ways after a 42-7 loss to Georgia. I was there. I did have some audio of the game that I was going to play during the podcast of me doing some play-by-plays. I'm not going to play that.
Okay, great.
I was upset.
You were drunk, is what you were.
No. No, I had 5 chicken tenders since
Yeah, okay.
I drank, so
All
that was fine.
Okay.
So between yielding one of the worst offenses in college football, having and stating that you were receiving fake death threats, and a 42-7
Romp.
against Georgia, Florida and Jim McElwain part ways with a reduced buyout. They don't have to go to court. They don't have to pay the full $12.6 million buyout.
Right.
Something that really bothered me was that the team didn't even find out from him face-to-face. He tweeted and said goodbye to the team through tweet. That really bothered me. And so for that, I say good riddance. I wasn't very happy with him. I was a huge fan when they hired McElwain. I thought it was going to be great. I thought it was going to be huge. And I've been since very disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know much about Jim McElwain when he came in.
Some hillbilly that likes to
What
dance
was it?
and play with
Colorado
sharks.
State? Is that where he came from?
Yep.
Colorado State, yeah. I didn't know much about Colorado State. I knew that they had been competitive in the Mountain West. They weren't lighting anybody on fire, but
No, they had one of the top team offenses in the country.
yeah,
When he was there.
and I don't doubt that. But when you're going up against Mountain West defenses, it's a little
With
bit-
Mountain West talent,
it's a little different. But I mean, I get the hire. I get like when they did it. I don't know that it was the best hire at the time, but it worked out for them. The first this was his third year, and in his first 2 years he won the East.
No, it was kind of by default.
Well,
You
yes,
have to
but
do much to win those.
regardless, he won the East. What they have 9 wins, 10 wins each year. Last 2 years.
No, not the last 2 years. I don't. No, they might have.
I mean, to win the East, you had to go at least 5-3, 6-2 on that side, in that division.
The diminishing talent from the SEC East allowed them to
Yeah, I
be
don't
the
doubt that.
shiniest of the turds.
I don't doubt that, but those wins still count. And they
Oh,
probably
they do.
still had at least 9 wins in both those seasons. No,
They went from last year.
the last 2 years with McElwain.
They went 8-5 2 years ago because they only played 11. So they went 8-3. They only played 11 games because the first game of the season against Idaho got canceled.
But did they win their bowl game?
They lost the bowl game their first year because they got romped by Michigan in the bowl game.
So they went 8-4.
They went 8-4. Then last year they went 9-5 because they went 8-4, lost in the SEC championship, and won the bowl game.
Okay.
Finished
So
9-5.
8-9 wins. Yeah, I mean, it's not obviously not what Florida wants. They want to compete for a national championship there. They want to restore them to when Urban
I
Meyer
think the
was there.
biggest thing is you're right. They did win the East, and if you're winning your division, that's good. But when you come in with a promise of producing an outstanding offense and really getting that going back to the glory days, and you not only fall short of that promise, but have a worse offense than even the last head coach, I mean, you're not living up to your expectation.
Yeah, and it didn't help that they were going up against good Florida State teams the last 2 years. Losing those rivalry games sure didn't help. And then last year he lost to Tennessee, which definitely didn't help his
He
cause.
broke lots of records. He almost ended their game scoring record. That's at like 367.
That was this week he almost lost it.
Yeah.
It's at Georgia, but I get why he's gone. I don't know that this was the best time to do it, but with the death threats, I think they
That's
kind
why
of
they
tipped
did it.
their hand,
They
forced
had-
their hand.
It gave them a legitimate reason to be able to force him on a lower buyout.
Look, I'm no Florida fan. I know you guys have more insight on this than I do, but Randy Shannon, not the answer.
No, not
I get you need an interim coach. I don't know that I would have made it Randy Shannon. But
I just think that he was the only one on the staff that had head coach experience. So the fact that he has had the prior knowledge of being able to deal with the media, deal with head coaching decisions in that regard, I think that's where they went with him. I don't agree with it either, personally.
okay. So I guess my question to you two, as Florida fans, where do you want to see them go from here?
Scott Frost.
Say that a little louder, please.
Scott Frost,
Okay.
UCF's coach.
Obviously, my number one choice would actually be Scott Frost as well. He's certainly the hottest coach on the market right now as far as non-Power 5 head coaches that will be available to move at the end of this year.
And also would be disappointed with Dan Mullen.
I personally like Dan Mullen as more of a dark horse hire.
Is he a defensive
Offensive.
guy?
He was
He is
the
an offensive guy.
He was
Okay.
the offensive coordinator in their 08 national
I
championship.
do feel like Florida needs an offensive guy to come in there and fix the thing.
Well,
Obviously,
no-
you guys have had decent defenses under McElwain this year, not so much. But
Ironically, McElwain was actually an offensive coach.
well, I know
He
that,
was-
but you guys have had good defenses in the past. I don't think that's the thing that needs to be fixed. Your offense has been stagnant since Tebow left. So,
Right. No, I agree.
That's the side of the ball that needs the most work, in my opinion.
Which is more or less why I'm thinking Scott Frost is the guy. If he knows enough to get a good defensive-minded guy to keep that still and then improve the offense, it's a big deal.
Okay, so who's your guys' second choice? Because I know you want Scott Frost, and
I
it
just
sounds...
said Dan Mullen.
Okay, so Dan Mullen would be your second choice.
Mhm.
I couldn't tell if you said you would be disappointed with Dan Mullen or not.
So I wouldn't.
Okay.
I'd be fine with Dan Mullen. I think
Okay.
he's not bad.
He's got Mississippi
For what he gets at Mississippi State, he seemed to do a pretty good job.
they're-
The people I do not want, I saw a couple lists of people potentials. Don't get Charlie Strong. He was playing with Willie Taggart's recruited team. Don't take Willie Taggart either. I don't think he's ready for an SEC level of play. And I think he prefers being in the Pac-12 anyways. Starting at Stanford, I think he's fine at Oregon.
I wouldn't worry too much about Willie Taggart. I know that's a rumor going around. The one I'd be worried about if I were you guys, Charlie Strong. That one's he's got a reason to go there, and I think they're going to talk to him. I don't know that he's going to end up there, but I think they're going to at least talk to him. I know you guys want Scott Frost. I know everybody thinks that'd be such a great hire. Problem is, Nebraska needs a coach. This guy won a national championship in Nebraska. If he's going to leave, probably going to go to Nebraska.
Yeah.
There was a good article that our uncle wrote about that.
You can see that at
It's Gridiron
Now.
Yeah, Gridiron Now. But he wrote the article saying that Scott Frost, although he would be a great hire, if Mama's calling and he needs to return home,
well, right.
you can't blame him for wanting to.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't blame him at all.
I have to imagine that is his dream job. I mean,
Right.
he did well at Oregon. He's obviously turned UCF around in no time.
Right.
And if he's going to get that call, I can't see him turning that down unless he's got some reason not to go there. He's told people at UCF and in Orlando, the media, that he wants to stay there and keep the momentum going. But you say that because you're the coach there. I don't think you honestly mean that.
Yeah, you're not gonna say, "Oh, I want out."
Right. You're not going to tell people that as soon as I get an offer from a Power 5 school, I'm leaving.
I mean, one of the biggest things, though, but one of the biggest benefits to being in Florida is the fact that you're on fertile recruiting grounds. I mean, Florida's one of the top 3 states consistently every year in recruiting, and one of the most heavily recruited, and he's in the middle of it all. I mean, he's got a great area, and if he loves it so much here, that could be one of the biggest pulls to keeping him in Florida.
It's great and all, but I mean, look at the amount of teams you have to go up against in Florida.
Look, I'm just trying to play the devil's advocate here. I was the one that initially said,
I'm just letting you know that
if
Florida's
Mama's calling and he goes home.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is if Florida Atlantic and Florida International are on the rise as well, these smaller schools in Florida, as well as USF, you're going to have a much tougher time because now you have to beat down those schools who you didn't have to worry about before because they were off the radar and nobody was considering them as their first, second, or third option, as well as dealing with Miami coming into your city, Florida State coming into your city, Florida coming into your city.
You could make that argument, but you're talking about the level of talent.
Yeah.
For UCF, it's going to get harder because when they're trying to pull
that's what you're
3-star
saying.
recruits.
Okay, so you're saying if he goes to Florida.
But if he goes to Florida, you're talking 4 or 5-star recruits that those schools aren't going to be able to pull anyway.
My apologies. I thought you were talking about if he sticks it out at UCF. In Florida, obviously, it's a different animal. You
Right.
can get the better recruits. But either way, not likely.
But the thing is, too, and this is kind of how the direction of the article went, is that don't build up your confidence so much on Frost right now because all it will do is if you don't land him, if Florida does not land him, it'll just be whoever their hire is, it will be a disappointment. And you don't want to already have that guy be behind before he even gets there.
Okay. Just a quick note. Florida went 10-4 in 2015, first season under McElwain. And they were 10-3 going into the bowl game against Michigan. And in 2016, they went 9-4.
9-4.
Yep.
So last year they didn't have a 12th game. I had it backwards.
Yeah, there you go. So let's just correct a little bit earlier. But anyway, back to the thing. Okay, so Dan Mullen, Scott Frost, those would be wins in your eyes. Anybody off the radar that you guys are looking at? Anybody you think that may just pop up out of nowhere?
There's been some talks of this guy, Jeff Brom, who's the head coach at Purdue.
Oh God,
Is he the guy that used to play at Louisville?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, he is. He for some reason has been on radars of people that they kind of.
I mean, Purdue
like
is having
him.
a better year than people were expecting. I don't know if he should take that big of a step, but
Right.
I get it.
But people like him, and then the Memphis head coach as well. But again, these are just people throwing names out. So
We're going to wrap this one up. There is no editing going on with this one, so the time doesn't really matter, but we'll move it right along. Iowa State, Jake already covered. I will go through my Heisman watch quickly for you. Top 3 as of right now: Saquon Barkley, Bryce Love, Baker Mayfield.
Saquon Barkley, after last week, he didn't have a great-looking game against Ohio State's
He
defense.
did not. That will probably drop him out of the top spot for now. It does not put Bryce Love in there, however, because Bryce Love did not play last week. He's still injured. We don't know when he's going to play again.
didn't Saquon Barkley return a kickoff for a touchdown?
He returned a kickoff for a touchdown, but he ran the ball 21 times for 44 yards.
23 times for 44 yards.
23 for 44, sorry.
Even worse.
Right. Yeah. He did not have a good game on the ground.
He did have a rushing touchdown. but
Look, I get why people love Saquon Barkley. He's a do-it-all back. He can return kicks. He's got almost 500 receiving yards. I get it. 15 total touchdowns, that's impressive. But when you look at it, he's not running the ball that great. He's averaging, I think, between 5 and 6 yards a carry. There's other backs out there averaging over 8. Bryce Love's averaging over 10.
Yeah.
This new quarterback for Khalil Tate at Arizona has outrushed Saquon Barkley in the last 5 weeks. He's got over 800 yards rushing, and he's outrushed Saquon Barkley, the Heisman candidate, and he's a quarterback.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, Saquon Barkley is a great back. He's probably going to go pretty high in the draft whenever he does leave. But
if you're looking
his
at running backs,
his Heisman hopes are falling. That you can't have weeks like he just had, 44 yards rushing on 23 carries. You can't do that.
yeah.
Like I said, Bryce Love, it doesn't really catapult him into the top spot. He's got 11 touchdowns. He doesn't have any receiving touchdowns. He doesn't catch the ball out of the backfield very often, if at all. He is averaging over 10 yards a carry, which is impressive. But who knows if he's even going to play the rest of this year. He's a game-time decision this week against Washington State. He didn't play last week, and they almost lost to Oregon State. You're going to penalize some of these other guys for their team losing games. Bryce Love's going to be a victim of that too.
Yep.
And then on my list, you got Baker Mayfield, just because he started the season so high, and he hasn't really done much to fall off it. They did lose to Iowa State, but it wasn't really on the offense that game.
And it's proving more and more that was not as bad of a win
Right,
as
it wasn't
looked like at the time.
Yeah. So last week, Baker Mayfield, 22 of 34, 281 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. He has thrown a pick in 3 straight games. That's only going to hurt him if he keeps that streak up. But he also ran one in against Texas Tech. He's 171 for 236, which equals a 72.5% completion percentage.
Ridiculous.
That's insane.
It's ridiculous.
And I get that he's not the prototypical quarterback, but I think some teams should look at him at the next level. I know he's not getting a lot of high looks now, but
You know what it reminds me of? And I think this is a little bit bigger on a bigger scale because of where he's at.
Mhm.
But kind of reminds me of... oh my God.
okay.
He reminds you of God.
I'm having a huge brain fart.
What
right now.
school?
Well, Wisconsin, NC State, the Seattle quarterback.
Russell
Wilson.
Yes.
Russell Wilson.
There you
Right.
go. See, sometimes you just need a little bit.
Obviously, I just needed to talk it through.
Yeah.
In this unedited version of the podcast.
Yeah, Russell Wilson wasn't this dynamic of a college player, though.
Right. He was also playing at smaller schools. Wisconsin, no. But
Pro
he started,
style offenses,
he started
yeah, pro
at
style.
NC State, pro-style offense. He was undersized. Right.
Yep.
And
Still is.
right. But and he went in the 3rd round. Right.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even supposed to be the starter coming into the year. I think Baker Mayfield may end up being that kind of guy, too. I could see that happening
if
to
he
him
could,
in the NFL.
if he could put up this kind of efficiency in terms of not turning the ball over and completion percentage in the NFL, he should be starting in the NFL. He's got 27 touchdowns, 3 picks, and he's completing over 70% of his passes, which is absolutely ridiculous.
If he has that kind of efficiency, I can guarantee you there's 14 teams in the NFL right now that could use a quarterback with that efficiency. You know?
All right, so moving on. The other 2 people I had on my list aren't included in here, but just names to keep an eye on. Josh Adams, the running back at Notre Dame. He ran for over 200 yards last week against NC State. And JT Barrett, as I said, 25 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's pretty impressive. Lamar Jackson's still putting up great numbers too, but the way that team's playing, there's no way he's even going to get an invite.
Yeah.
So
as far as who do you guys have winning the Heisman right now, I would put my ballot in for Baker Mayfield. If Saquon Barkley doesn't drastically get back to where he was and play that way the rest of the season, then he won't get it. If he does, then he probably will get it. I think he's got enough buzz. Yeah. But right now, I'd say Baker Mayfield. I think.
I think Barkley right now is probably still at the top of the list for most people, even though that he had that bad showing. He's probably going to come back this week against Michigan State and put up 3 touchdowns, 150 yards of total offense. Something to make people forget about last week, but he can't have another game like this and win the Heisman, in my opinion.
That's Danny's opinion. Joe, who do you have winning the Heisman?
Who do I want to win the Heisman? I mean,
do
Danny
you
pretty
have?
much covered it. I mean, who do I have right now?
Mhm.
I know a lot of people are going to put Saquon Barkley as number 1 on their ballot.
Yeah.
I personally think Baker Mayfield's done enough to be considered the top player in the country.
If Notre Dame
And
keeps
that's coming
winning,
from Heisman QB 14 right there.
if Notre Dame keeps winning, though, Josh Adams is going to fly up the Heisman watch, and he's
I
going to
don't
have a
think he
legitimate.
makes it by the end of the year, though.
He's going to have a legitimate shot. Right now, he's top 5.
With the games that Notre Dame has left, and we'll touch on that obviously, but
Yep.
with the games that they have left, if Josh Adams put up good numbers against those teams, there's no reason that he can't be invited.
Well, he'll be invited. I just don't think he wins it.
Yeah, I mean, it would take a little bit, but he's putting up almost 9 yards a carry. He's having a good year. On to the last item on the top 10. The playoff committee came out with their first rankings this past Tuesday.
Boy, were we off.
We were not that far off. I mean, we weren't spot on, but Georgia number 1. We talked about this as a group a little bit before the actual rankings, the day of the rankings coming out. Some of us thought that Georgia could be over Bama just based on schedule and who they've beaten so far, but Bama does have 3 ranked opponents in their next 4 games as it sits right now. So that will obviously change if it continues down this path. But it was Georgia at number 1, Bama at number 2, Notre Dame at number 3, and Clemson at 4. Oklahoma and Ohio State 5 and 6 respectively. Rounding out the top 10, Penn State, TCU, Wisconsin, and Miami of Florida. So 2 undefeated teams at 9 and 10. Both of them haven't really played anybody. So we see that they don't care that much about, your record per se, more so about who you've played and who you've beaten. Then we also see head-to-head come into play with Oklahoma, Ohio State at 5-6. They put Oklahoma ahead because they've beaten Ohio State in that head-to-head. That will loom kind of large as we move forward.
And 6-7 as well, with Ohio State beating Penn State.
Right, Ohio State over Penn State. That also can show the head-to-head there. I'm a little surprised. If I had to pick one thing I was surprised at, it's Clemson at 4. I get Clemson's played a somewhat difficult schedule. I believe they've played the most top 40 teams out of everybody in college football, which, it's nice. I don't think they've played that many top 15, top 20 teams as some of these other schools.
They had
have.
historically the toughest September schedule in a long
Right. Well, I mean,
time.
they beat Auburn. Auburn was a big name back then. I think they might have been.
They beat
4th.
Louisville, who at the time was top 15.
Yeah, at the time. We've since seen that Louisville's not so great.
But I was listening to some of the stuff that the playoff committee was saying. I think it was Blake or whatever, one of the head of the committee.
Mhm.
And they were kind of talking about there's a lot of confusion around the whole Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State. And they talked to that point. They're like, Ohio State, even though they lost to Oklahoma, they just beat Penn State. How is Oklahoma still above them? And they're looking at they still look at who you beat at that time and what they ranked. So even if Bama beat number 2 FSU, even though they're not really a number 2 team at the time, that's what they were. So that holds some weight. They also look at what those teams have since done.
Personally, I think it's ridiculous that they even consider what they were at the time, and they don't just solely focus on what the team is since then. I see the Florida State example being a little different because of an injury, but in general, I don't think Louisville should be counted as a top 15 win just because they happen to get the most votes from the AP
Right.
at the time. But, that's a different discussion. I disagree with some people in that aspect. Everybody has their own opinion. My problem with Clemson being 4 is not, they've played a decent schedule, great, but their loss is the worst loss out of all of these schools.
Yep, without a doubt.
All of these top 10 schools, all of their losses, you go through Notre Dame, who is their loss to?
Georgia, number 1.
Georgia, number 1. Who is Oklahoma's loss to?
Ohio State.
Number 5.
No.
Who is
6.
Oklahoma's 5.
Right. Their losses to now.
Oklahoma's
number 6.
loss is to number 6 Ohio State.
Right.
Who's Ohio State's loss to?
No,
I'm sorry,
Oklahoma beat
backwards.
Ohio State.
Okay,
Backwards.
I'm sorry.
That's my bad. I pushed you in the wrong direction. Yeah,
Yeah,
their only loss is to number 15 Iowa State.
Right. Okay. So Ohio State's loss is to number 5 Oklahoma. Penn State. Who's their loss to?
Ohio State.
Number 6
Ohio
Ohio
State.
Hmm.
TCU.
Number 15 Iowa State.
And Wisconsin and Miami don't have a loss. Clemson's loss is to Syracuse.
Right.
They're not ranked. They're not close to being ranked. They're a better team than they were last year, but they're not a great team. So I guess what the committee is saying with this is it doesn't really matter who you lose to.
So long as you played a good, difficult schedule.
We're going to count head-to-head, but yeah, you can lose to an unranked opponent. We don't care.
I mean, I the only thing I can think of, because this plays a factor,
Kelly
in it,
Bryant?
too, Kelly Bryant being hurt that game. That's where the human element
did
comes
mention
into
that,
play
too.
that the BCS computer system did not play into, is the fact that you had a backup quarterback playing in that game.
And he mentioned
But
that.
But Kelly
Clemson
Bryant did
lost.
play in that game, did he not?
He got hurt at the beginning of the game.
He was hurt coming into the game. He got hurt again. They thought he was dead. and then yes, and then the backup quarterback played the rest of the game. I see your side of it, and personally, I agree with you. I don't think Clemson, based off of how bad their loss is should not be ranked.
It's just
4th.
interesting to see them there right now. I get it if they go through the rest of their schedule, but seeing them there right now, meaning that if
Right.
they win out,
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody jumps them.
If they went out and they win the ACC, they're in. I mean, that's
Right,
basically
and
what
that-
that's saying.
That is a little crazy to me, being that their loss is going
Yeah.
to be worse.
And
than
you're going
any
to keep
these
it out
other
of
losses.
Oklahoma, who goes to the Big 12 championship and wins and may not get in because Notre Dame wins out or something.
Yeah, I mean, so the other thing the committee's telling us is Notre Dame is the best one-loss team right now at number 3. I mean, it is what it is, I guess. I don't.
We don't need to get into all that again.
Yeah, we don't need to argue that much about it. I don't think that you can have it both ways. I don't think you can count Michigan State as a ranked win and then say that, at the end of the season when NC State isn't ranked anymore, that was also a ranked win because NC State's fallen out, but Michigan State came in. You can't have it benefit you in both ways.
That's why I think you have to look at both. You can't just say Louisville, even though they are awful, you didn't beat a top 15 team. I think that holds some weight, but that weight kind of diminishes or strengthens based on how that team performed the rest of the season. So you have to kind of look at both. I'm kind of surprised Notre Dame is at number 3. I think they are or should be in the top 4 by the end of the season, but I'm kind of surprised they already started at number 3 now. I was expecting more of Ohio State and Oklahoma in there, but hey, more power to them. If they win out, they're going to keep that spot. And they also mentioned something about Bama. Basically, they're going to be in the top 4. They could, lose to Georgia, and they're not going to drop that. And they attested that one to the eye test, which I know you hate the eye test.
No, I mean, I think the eye test does matter a little bit, but the eye test is so subjective that
Because Bama is Bama.
people are going to see it that way sometimes, and I just think the eye test it differs from everybody. There's no way to actually track the eye test because you may think the eye test shows that Bama's the number 1 team in the country, and I may think that the eye test shows that Georgia's the number 1 team in the country, but it doesn't really matter. Like it's basically the eye test only to those committee members, and they're probably all having differing opinions on the eye test as well.
Absolutely.
So I'd rather see some actual numbers play into it, but it is what it is. That's why we have a human element to it now, I guess, because people didn't like relying on the numbers. They didn't like the formulas. So
Our co-host here, Dub Dish, is a robot, in fact.
anyway, we can move on. You want to cover the worst game of the week, Jake?
Yeah, so like we talked about Baylor 0-8 at Kansas Birds 1-7. The only thing I'll say about this is that Baylor has, even though they have not won a game, and again, I love how when I start worst game of the week, both people here are on their phones and not listening to me. Baylor has played some teams close.
I actually have something important to deal with on my phone. So.
Okay, excuses. So they did only lose to West Virginia, who's ranked 38-36, and they only lost to number 3 Oklahoma 49-41. But then they do have a game where they lose to Oklahoma State 59-16. For the most part, they've been playing teams really close. So Baylor, they try. They give a good effort. Kansas's only win is against an FCS school, and that was week 1. They've since lost 7 straight. And they lose to bad teams pretty badly. Texas Tech isn't an awful team, but they did lose 65-19. They also lost to Central Michigan 45-27. So Kansas is just on a completely different level. I think this for the third straight week in a row. I think Baylor wins by double digits. And third week in a row, that's
For
a
the-
team
for the-
won in the worst game of the
for
week
the worst
by
game of
double
the week.
digits.
Correct. Yeah, I got you. All right. So that's a nice little prediction. I too think Baylor wins. I'm not sure by how much. I'm not willing to go that far, but Kansas is definitely not a
Bad.
top opponent. I mean, Baylor's lost to an FCS school this year, so I don't really know what to think.
These are the bottom two of the Big 12, the bottom feeders. Joe, who do you have winning that game? Good note. Moving on.
All right, so game of the week. We'll start with Joe. Your game of the week: Penn State at Michigan State.
Yes, the noon game. I just wanted to do something different, and it's the other ranked matchup this week of the two that you guys had. Penn State favored by 8.5. I like that spread. I think Penn State does win by double digits. But it does have an element to it. Michigan State's got a good defense. They've turned it around from last year, going 4-8. They look good. LJ Scott, very good running back. He's gonna put Penn State's defense to the test. I just don't think that they'll be able to keep up with Penn State's offense. I don't see it. I think Penn State is an all-around better team. There is an upset element in here that could happen because Penn State could be reeling off of Ohio State. However, I think the exact opposite happens. I think that this team comes in angry at their loss to Ohio State and that they have something to prove, and they come in and put up big numbers against Michigan State.
Nice. I also think Penn State wins, like you said. I think Saquon Barkley, like I said earlier, probably puts up 2 or 3 touchdowns, has a little bit of a bounce-back game, but I don't think Michigan State's that good, honestly.
Yeah, I don't either. I think they've had a pretty easy schedule, and we've seen now that Michigan is not as good as people thought at the time of the Michigan State game.
And that's going to hurt Wisconsin, too, because that's the only good team that they play.
Who?
Wisconsin.
Play
Michigan
Michigan.
They play Michigan.
They play Michigan.
Oh, not Michigan State?
No.
My bad. Both Michigan teams.
Yeah, whatever. All right, but so you tend to agree with the same.
Mm-hmm. Penn State.
Okay. For your game of the week, which I think is probably the best game of the week, but I wanted to go a different direction just so we had a few different games to talk about.
Yeah.
But you got Oklahoma State.
Oh, yeah. I'm actually really excited for this game.
That
I
should be a good
love
game.
offensive matchups. High-scoring games are very fun to me. And watching, these teams, Rudolph and Mayfield, play the ball, play offense, it's exciting. So I have Oklahoma winning. I think they're going to end up taking the top. But both of these teams are very comparable, especially on offense. Oklahoma State averages 44 points a game. Oklahoma averages 42. They've played their close games have been against basically the same teams. They both played Texas very close and blown out all the same teams. So they seem very comparable. It's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be very high scoring. When you're looking at some of the numbers, Baker Mayfield, we already kind of talked about his numbers, 23 touchdowns and 3 picks. Mason Rudolph has 25 touchdowns and 5 picks, but about 200 yards more passing. So defenses, they're both pretty much the same, 382 per game, yards per game for Oklahoma, 358 per game for Oklahoma State. So,
it's an offensive battle.
Yeah, that's really what it boils down to. The only thing I made note is if Oklahoma can learn from Texas and what Texas did to really shut out Oklahoma State, they had to go in overtime to beat them. It was like a 13-10 win. If they can learn from that, I think they'll more easily take the W.
Yeah, I mean, Texas has got one of the better defenses in the Big 12. They showed, like you said, the Big 12.
They found a weakness.
Yeah, that Mason Rudolph and Oklahoma State can be stopped.
Yeah, Oklahoma played a close game against Texas as well, but it was still like a 29-point
Right. Yeah,
game.
the problem is Oklahoma's defense. I don't know that they have what it takes to slow them down.
Right.
So I agree with you. I expect to see some points being put on the board in this in the Bedlam.
Mm-hmm. Would you take the over-under for this game?
Our friend Travis, in our friendly little weekly predictions, took the under. It was at 76, which is a lot of points.
Yeah.
I struggle with that number. I think it's going to end up right about that number. I'd probably go the under too, just because I think there are going to be some stops late in the game that kind of keep it, a little. I don't think it's going to be a shootout in the fourth quarter. I think it may be a shootout for the first half and then it slows down in the second half. But it's hard to say what the total is going to be. It's going to be a good game either way. I got to lean towards Oklahoma. But either way, both sides have senior leadership at quarterback. So really, I don't think either one's going to be frazzled by an early deficit if it comes to that.
Joe, who do you have? Good note.
I have Oklahoma. You wanted it quick. I have Oklahoma.
I didn't say quickly.
41-38.
Oh.
Okay. So over
Throw
for
it in
Joe.
the score. All right. Look at this guy.
All right. Hey, I'm down with it. All right. So for my game of the week, like I said, I went in a little bit of a different direction. Virginia Tech at Miami. I think it's an important game. Well, it's definitely an important game. I'm not the only one. It's definitely an important game in the Coastal. Winner most likely will represent the ACC in their championship game. Virginia Tech is favored by 2.5 points. It's a night game on Saturday. Like I said, it's in Miami. I think that benefits Miami a little bit, but without Mark Walton and just the way Miami's been playing all of these close games, I think that somebody's going to come in and smash them in the mouth, and they're not going to be able to come from behind and win. I think Virginia Tech's that team. I think Miami's going to come out. They're going to turn the ball over probably at least once in the first half. I think they turn it at least twice in the game. And I think that Virginia Tech jumps out to an early lead and holds on to it for the rest of the game. It may still end up as a close game, but I think Virginia Tech's going to lead for the majority of it.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree with you. I said it a couple weeks ago. I think Mark Walton's going to be is a big difference in Miami's ability to stay undefeated, and it's going to show this week.
It has been showing.
Well, it's been showing, but they've been able to win.
Yeah.
I think that now that you have a higher quality opponent than who they've been facing, it's really going to show, and they'll lose.
I agree. Virginia Tech's going to win this game. No doubt.
No doubt. All right, so on to our upset picks. Last week I did not have one. Jake made one on the playoff preview show.
See, that's not fair. So mine shouldn't count. 'cause you
No,
didn't do
it
one.
counts because you lost. So he picked Penn State over Ohio State. They did not win that game. Ohio State won 39-38. So that brings his record to 3-4 on the year. I'm 2-4. We didn't do the recaps from 2 weeks ago's picks, but I ended up losing my pick as well as did Jake. And Joe won his, actually. That was the week he picked Louisville over Florida State. This week, Joe goes with Army over Air Force. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Exciting stuff.
It's riveting. I love the inter-service rivalries that we have. I have Army over Air Force. Air Force is favored by 6.5. Army 6-2 this year. It's the first time since 1984-85 that they've gone bowling in back-to-back seasons. The fact that they are 6-2 means they're bowl eligible, and they've already accepted a bowl bid. Already.
Which bowl?
The Lockheed Martin Armed Services Bowl.
Hey, there you go.
Armed Forces Bowl, excuse me.
They've earned it.
Hey, they're going to a bowl game. That's all that matters.
Well, exactly. I mean, their only losses right now are to Ohio State and Tulane. Tulane, okay, but this is Army. Ohio State, they got romped by them, but it's to be expected. Air Force, 4-4 with losses to Michigan, San Diego State, New Mexico, and Navy. Air Force has already lost the first inter-service rivalry game.
Right.
It was a close one. Army is 14-36-1 all time versus Air Force with a 1-6 record since 2010. Their only win was in 2012.
Nice.
Yes. And then history is not on Army's side for this, but I believe in them this year. So I'm pulling for them. It should be fun. It'll be interesting to see how the game pulls out. An interesting stat on that rivalry, the first ever meeting between the two teams, October 31st, Halloween, 1959, ended in a tie. It is the series' only tie.
I'm so glad we don't have ties anymore.
It was 13-13.
Yeah. I personally have Air Force winning this game, but I think it's a solid upset pick. You know.
Hey,
I think
Go
it'll be a
Bold.
fun game, and I would like to say you should definitely support your troops by purchasing a ticket starting at $29 to go to this game.
$29.
I really hope that Army wears their waist and aren't going to, but I would really love to see their camo uniforms. I think they're my favorite uniforms of all time.
Nice. All right, Jake, what's your upset of the week?
My upset of the week is Iowa State over West Virginia. I am kind of taking advantage of the craziness of a ranked team being underdogs to an unranked team, even though it is
because
at
they're on the
home.
road.
Yeah, but the way Iowa State's been playing, it's been pretty crazy, and I don't see West Virginia and their stolen quarterback from. I don't see them beating Iowa State. They're gonna keep running this.
All right. I think that the train's got to end somewhere. I don't know if it'll be this week. I like Will Grier, so I think potentially it's going to end this week. Any week in the Big 12, though, this could happen. The Big 12 is such a toss-up every week, it seems like lately. And West Virginia being favored against this red-hot Iowa State team at home, it seems like just indicative of the Big 12 in their current situation right now.
I mean, it's by less than the home field advantage.
If you don't know David Sills' story, I think it's David Sills the fifth at West Virginia. He's a receiver. Go look up his story. He was actually recruited at age 13 by Lane Kiffin when he was at USC as a quarterback. Ended up, after Lane Kiffin was let go and everything, not going to USC, and kind of rebuilt himself. I think he went to a community college at the beginning and rebuilt himself into a wide receiver when he got to West Virginia, and now he's their leading receiver. Pretty crazy story.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm emotional. Thank you for that.
Yeah, great. Anyway, my upset of the week is Oklahoma over Oklahoma State. We've already covered that game pretty in depth, but I've got Baker Mayfield.
Careless whisper.
Yeah, Jake likes to talk about how much I love those, but I gotta go with them.
You mean to tell me you have the number 8 team beating the number 11 team in your upset pick of the week?
I do.
Splitting another fault in the
Jake has got the number 15 team, I think, beating
unranked
an unranked opponent in his upset of the week.
No, I understand that, but I expect that of him.
Hey,
I don't expect that of you.
I've been doing some crazy picks this year. You don't expect that of me. You bite your tongue.
Anyway, we have gotten a little cheeky with some of these upset picks lately. I think maybe we'll have to implement something maybe next year in terms of picking these ranked opponents as underdogs. But we'll see how that goes. I'm not doing too well. I'm 2-4, and I've been doing this for a couple weeks now. So I think I was at one point I was 2-1 or something like that.
Don't get on to us. If we're like 6-2, then you can. Set
I'm struggling with my upset picks, even though I keep taking this.
Vegas knows. Vegas knows more than we do. Apparently.
All right, I think that's all we have for this week. I would like to shout out some people on Facebook.
Well, I was about to say I wanted to take this time to go to our fans and our viewers to start discussing some of the topics they would like us to talk about.
You list them off, and I'll knock them down for us.
All right, so let me go ahead and get over there and see what our fans are wanting us to talk about.
Okay, that works for me. Yet again, you can find us on Facebook at Backyard Sportscast. You can find us on YouTube, Backyard Sportscast. And you can find us on Twitter, at BYSC Podcast. And at Jacob Camp.
Yeah.
Is there numbers involved in that, or is it just at Jacob Camp?
At Jacob Camp.
All right. Joe, you can find it at JoboCamp12. Myself, you can find it at DubDish. I'm not going to spell it for you. I've done that enough. The C is silent. That's all I'm going to tell you. The C is silent.
So before I get into this, I'm going to remind our viewers that we have pivoted to a college football only podcast. So keeping that in mind, the first topic to discuss, the Winter Olympics.
The Winter Olympics.
Is there college football in the Winter Olympics?
There is not.
Next.
The Winter Olympics are a few months away, though.
Do not. So my fiance is the one that suggested this. And
maybe in February. There was a comment on that as well for curling. I do love curling, but I don't know that it's going to find a spot on this podcast.
We're not talking about the Olympics, Abby. Give it up. Next, Florida's coaching change. We did discuss that.
We did cover
Good riddance. And the World Series.
World Series we haven't talked much about. We did mention at the beginning, Houston Astros won Game 7 last night. It wasn't very exciting. The series itself was incredibly exciting. Game 7, however, Houston jumped out to an early lead. I think it was 2-0 in the first. I'm not sure if they got up to 5-0 early on or if the Dodgers...
It was 5-1 very early on.
Well, I know that the
5-0 early on.
It was 5-0.
By the end of the second, it was 5-0.
And then the Dodgers came back out. Yu Darvish lasted for less than 2 innings for the second time in this 7-game World Series. That's unbelievable. I mean, Houston's seen him a lot over the years with him. Used to be with Texas. And
should have started Kershaw.
Well,
that's going to haunt the head coach.
They let Kershaw go for a while. If he was that, if he was ready, if he had the arm strength to go that long, like he did out of the pen, they probably should have started him that game. Game 7, put your best guy out there. But, I mean, Houston didn't throw Keuchel, and they seemed to do fine.
The only reason why we're talking about this is because we did make you guys endure the postseason check-ins every week, so might as well finish the job.
Hey, it's a gamble when you're talking about a 7-game series like that,
Yep. And just so everyone knows, Kelvin Benjamin for the Buffalo Bills recently traded this week, just for NFL purposes. He will not be starting tonight in the Thursday night game.
He won't be playing at all.
Yeah, that's what I said.
We're talking about NFL
now.
Oh, I'm sorry. He will not be playing at all. But I just wanted to throw that out there for all you people who listen to this.
Well, if we're talking about NFL updates, Garoppolo also got traded to the 49ers.
Yes, he did. There were a lot of trades at the trade deadline. We're not going to go over all those right now, though.
Because we're a college football podcast.
Was there anything else on the list?
Yes, Betty Rogers did recommend badminton.
Badminton is a great sport. It will not be on this podcast ever.
Next.
Because I don't think there's really a time or place to talk about badminton unless we're sitting around sipping tea somewhere. I don't even know that it's televised.
It is in some regards.
In
ESPN
some regards.
ate the Ocho.
Well, that's not a thing. It was a thing for a day, but it's not right now. So I don't think we're going to see much badminton talk.
And the last recommendation is skeleton.
I don't know what that is.
Me either.
You talk about that.
What is skeleton?
Rebecca, it's Halloween passed 2 days ago. Skeleton is not a sport that I'm aware of, and if it is a sport, I don't think it's college football, so we're not going to discuss that.
Well, we can
one.
talk about skeletons for a little while.
No, we cannot. And
I was going to end the podcast. Okay.
So it is kind of interesting. Nothing wrong with it, but everybody who did engage on our comments, thank you for that. They're all women.
Why does that matter?
I'm just saying it's interesting. It seems that we're reaching women. That the women.
Cut this podcast short.
Well, we can't. Everything that gets recorded is going to upload anyway.
You're still talking about that right now?
Well, I can cut this part out, I guess. I can cut just from the end.
Right. Yeah.
But
We're
anyway.
done. All right. So, for all of our listeners, thank you for listening to another great edition of Backyard Sportscast, the college football podcast.
Yep.
Thank you and good night.